when you actually enter the software development engineer one part, then the kind of skills that are required to succeed there are like actually writing good code, good quality code, and then as I said, testing different type of testings as well. And then how do you not regress over period of time as well? How do you not break the products that are already built in?
Welcome, everyone, to the Tech Guide podcast, where we give actual advice to those wanting to break into tech or are looking for their next gig. We have Shubham Patel on the podcast to talk about he got a job at companies like Amazon and Apple and the advice he has for those wanting to stand out in their career. So, Shubham, super excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. And hi, everyone.
We got to kick it off. You have had an amazing career already as a software developer. But we got to go to like your younger days, your younger career. Is there a specific moment in time you remember like falling in love with technology to the point where you're like, I'm going to do this for a career. I'm going to be a software developer as a career?
Sure. Yeah, I think this will go way back in 2010. I think so. When I had a course for like programming in my high school, and that's where I actually, we were just like dabbling around with Java and writing some small piece of code that just write like patterns and just some normal programming. And I think that was the first time where I thought, okay, this is the one that I really want to pursue. And this is when my in India, like a lot of the family suggest that you should go with either medical or some like core engineering skills, which I went against all of the suggestions, and then put my foot down with software engineering. So I really like the initial bits and pieces that I wrote for my high school.
Yeah, I'm so jealous that you guys had like a course when you were in high school, just because like we didn't. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, a town of 10,000 people, and like we never had those opportunities. So I'm so jealous of people that like had these high school opportunities, like learn to code at such a young age, because like obviously it's a great career now. So I'm very jealous of that.
Yeah, thanks to the people who basically draft the syllabus for us.
I love that. And so you started learning in 2010, and you had some pretty big roles, some big responsibilities early on in your career. You were a tech lead slash founding engineer for the college store, in which you developed e-commerce for university students to buy and sell used textbooks. It was used in 35 plus universities. You also were a co-founder for Prolog, in which you led 9 early developers and product managers. Let's start here at some foundational stuff. How did owning these large responsibilities at an early age like really help with developing those technical skills and those personal skills?
Yeah, sure. So the position at college store, like it was much more early. Like it's I think second or third year of my university days, and I had just learned programming, but I was not there where I can like actually start developing the entire end-to-end systems as well. So that particular role definitely helped me on lot of skills like how to manage database, how to set up that database, and some of the early development that other team members did, they had some websites in PHP, and then we have to restart everything again in Ruby on Rails, and that's one of the skills that I like initially started developing. And so I moved from just writing APIs and some MVC related controllers to like writing entire end-to-end migration script, like migrating some of the data from older one to new. And then that actually made like lot of the skills, or I would say a lot of the theoretical concepts that I learned in the like in my university, I was able to like put it into practice at the same time. So that really helped. And same with Prolog. Prolog actually started as a student project. So it was a software engineering end-to-end project where you have to, start with requirements gathering until UAT testing, user acceptance testing, everything end-to-end we have to do. And I was the lead of the project, but there were like eight, nine students who actually took that course, who also evolved. Like as a team, we evolved from individual ICs to like taking the bigger role. And we actually like took it as not just a project, but then it evolved to a like much more a better product that we launched in entire university as well. So, so all the skills all put together. So not just technical skills, but how to start like work with the team and then go on from there. That like really helped from not at that point, but also in when I took the internship at Amazon much later after that. So because I already had all that experience, it was much easier for me to adapt to the corporate culture.
Yeah, I think it's so cool, like to start projects when you're in school, and like if you are listening and you are in school, this is your sign to go start a project because like it is such like a risk free endeavor to start on. And I'm sure
Yeah.
you know that with like the college tour, because like you're learning stuff in your courses, but you're also like applying it into like a real business practice, which had been so
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you never know where that let's say if you're actually building something which has demand in the actual real world, then you never know where you can get funding. So that like the college store went on getting some funding from iCreate. It's one of the like initial accelerators in India, got accepted into Google Startup Accelerator. So all
wow.
of that, like it once you start doing it, then you will you will never realize that you are already into that ecosystem. So then you start meeting with more founders who are also in very similar positions, and then it will keep on increasing from there, right? And there is no risk to this. So the worst thing that can happen is, let's say, like in this case, for example, like all of the co-founders or the main founding team had different ideas or different aspirations. So
Yeah.
everyone moved to a different like positions after that, but still like the learnings that we had all just remained same, right? So we didn't actually lose anything apart from the time, but then what to do with the 4 years of university education that you're getting. So
Yeah, I think that's so sweet because like like you are spending time on it, of course, but like to be able to go through like these ecosystems, like the Google startup program, like accelerator, like that is so cool. And like, how old were you at this age? Because I feel like yeah, how old
I
were you? That's what's going on.
I think probably 19 is what I remember. So the one interesting thing about some of the universities in India is that they have, the entrepreneurship cells as well in the university. So the cells actually supports this kind of like starting new endeavors from students. They even
Yeah,
fund that, and like they will actually provide some of the mentorships from the industry as well. Then there are alumni groups who have succeeded in the long run, also come back and give some mentorship. So all of this literally actually gels well with whatever you are doing in the startup.
I'm curious. Like, give me a scale of like 1 to 10. Like, how good of a programmer were you at this age?
I
Giving
think
you're going through this Google Accelerator program, like people listening
I
to this, like, oh my god, this guy has to be a 10.
no, I think probably seven. I'll probably say seven. Like not extremely good, but not like bad as well. So at that time you don't realize a lot of other skills as well that comes into play. For example, at that time, okay, there is some data that is coming in. You have to do some pre-processing, store it, maybe read from the database and just give it as part of the API. So that's the basic part of it. Now, at that time, I didn't know a lot of things. Like I didn't know multi-threading, for example. So even though it's like, one of the most important concepts, I
Yeah.
didn't know like how to handle race conditions, how to handle like, let's say if you have a large distributed system, how to handle failures. So failure part is much more, I feel like, it's much more advanced level. If you get there, then you know almost everything end to end, because now you also know not how to make like success path, like a happy path scenarios, but how to handle the worst part as well, because it once you progress into your career, the questions that comes around is, okay, what happens if something goes wrong? Can we recover something back, like the entire system back in very short time? So all that part I didn't know all that at that time, not
Yeah.
even at a code level, like nothing exceptionally well, I would say. So I'll just learn like with whatever projects that came along.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And you talked about it, just kind of extracting some of what you said there is like you are owning so much, and like that's huge for development at a young age. But also, it's just like the problem solving skills you're figuring out owning such a big project. Because I'm sure stuff is always coming up in the code where it's like, oh, I need to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. And I'm sure that has paid dividends just for your long term growth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like unless you actually do it, you will never realize like some of the things that you actually have to think through. I
Yeah.
remember one of the example being, we if we sign up on a website, we get an SMS verification. Let's say if you don't get it, usually many of the websites will resend the same one of them, versus whether you have to generate a new one or not. So it's
Mm.
like it's a very simple problem, but if you actually come to that, then you realize a lot of the user use cases as well. That okay, oh, if let's say if we generate a new one, can it happen that the second one arrives first, and then both the attempt fails, like things like that. And yeah, when you actually get into like hands-on on all of this, you will realize like, later, like, okay, these are the paths that we need to think about it. And I feel like there is no replacement to actual practice. You can read everything, but it will be just theoretical concepts. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you can listen to all the podcasts you want, read all the books you want, but until you're actually like implementing these practices, you're not going to have that feedback loop of like, oh, this worked or like this didn't work or like this is
yeah.
how we improve on something.
Yeah, and with the team, it like the role evolves from just writing one file of programming, like where you are just independently working and writing one file of code versus going to, multiple like thousands line of code projects, and then multiple people collaborating on the same code that has been written just couple of hours back. So then like the skill set evolves from not just being technical, how to talk to other people, how to coordinate with other people, project management and getting things done in small amount of time. So all of these things, I strongly suggest, like, the students who are actually just in university, they should have some project that they are really passionate about. Doesn't matter where it actually ends up being. Even if it gets Deadpool, like, in that 1 or 2 years, whatever you are learning is much more, it's like mimicking what the corporate culture is or the startup culture is in many of the, like, at least US cities.
Yeah, and I can relate to that in some sense. I was not coding when I was a senior in college, but when I was a senior in college, like that's when I got first introduced into like podcasting, and like I was starting this podcast from ground zero, really, of like finding that process of like understanding, like, oh, how do I get guests on a podcast? How do I edit this? How do I host a good interview? And just for building that foundation in college, where it was basically play free, risk free,
Yeah,
it just helped me so much because I'm owning a huge project, and I keep hitting on that point again. But like owning projects at a young age, I feel like are like one of the most
true,
beneficial things
true.
you can do for your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And the number of opportunities have just grown after, like, in last couple of decades. Like there are a lot of open source projects where you don't have to actually, like you don't have to set up everything from ground zero. It's basically, and that's I feel like that the activation energy required to start something new is much more higher. But
Yeah,
if you start something like you just go onto some open source project and just start contributing to it, it's much more helpful. And then there are people who can actually help you out in setting up that projects as well. So at my time, at least, it was there, like, there were programs like Google Summer of Code that used to help a lot in on this. But let's say 2 decades back, there was not lot many opportunities. So I think, like, definitely students should leverage at least now.
and let's talk about a little bit about opportunities because you became a software development engineer intern at Amazon. Um, awesome experience as that is and stuff. But how did these projects that you took on? How did that really help you break into a large big tech role like this?
Yeah, sure. So, something which is different in India versus US is that, the companies actually come to your campus and then take your interview, which is very different from, how we have it here, like have career fairs and then you have to pitch your resumes. So it's much easier there. I'll at least like concede that. But then it depends on the competition as well. Like I had like more than 200, 300 people like sitting for the same internship positions
Wow.
when I was interviewing. So the only good thing is that there is some process. If you are well prepared, then you can get through it. So the like to answer your first part, which is like how do you break into this, is at initial level, like if you are just starting into the career in tech, then like the algorithms part makes much more impact than anything else, because it will give you the basics right, the
Yeah.
fundamentals right as well. And then it basically proves that you are able to write like a really correct code and more efficient, space optimized or time optimized code. And then it's just, if your that fundamental is right, then everything, all the things that follows is build up on top of each other. So I'll suggest like algorithms and data structures is definitely one part. And then the students can basically select one of the programming language. Either it can like, I'll suggest definitely one object-oriented programming. But if you have one object-oriented programming like C++ or Java with a scripting language like Python, I had Ruby at that time. I didn't learn Python, but any one of them. Then you can do a lot of stuff, like not just build a scalable program, but then you also build, how do you do small stuff like just downloading files and pre-processing something. So this too, like one language and then all the fundamentals like data structure algorithms, I think definitely are the important ones. Then just getting the concepts right, like the computer science concepts right, I think is another part. Like, getting, let's say, computer networks part, operating systems right, database management systems right. So all of the concepts, whatever is part of the bachelor's or like any of the initial associate degrees, I think should help.
Yeah, I think it is like important to like focus on like what you want to like it is important to specialize on what you want to
Yeah.
focus on in a career. How would you advise someone to choose the correct one for them right now?
As in the languages.
Yeah, like in the languages.
I think so. There are a lot of other things that comes into play. Like for example, what's the community support, and that keeps on changing. For example, 5 years back, Angular JS was one of like it had a growing community, but then
Yeah.
React came in, and then everyone moved to React, and so one part is definitely the community support part of it because it's easier to develop on that. You can search a question on Stack Overflow, get the answers very easily, versus like something which is very new and you won't get those answers. You might get stuck. So look for the community support. The second part is the adaptability part as well. So Python, for example, got adapted very easily and
Yeah.
like in extremely small amount of time. So if it is like you sometimes you have to take gut feeling as well that oh, this is actually being used at multiple companies or startups, and then you can choose that. One of the suggestions that I got from like someone long time back, I don't remember who, but was that go to a LinkedIn or any of the career jobs posting websites,
Yeah.
and then like see the number of positions that skills have. So that's like one direct signal of okay, what to go after. So if you're just graduating, let's say in third or fourth year of university, and just see the number of positions that skills have, that will give you a like adaptability rate of that particular language. And I know this doesn't answer the like exact answer, like doesn't give you the exact answer. But yeah, if I have to select, then I'll either go with Java or C++, as I said. Mostly Java because many of the companies use that. And go with Python like for scripting because it covers like a lot of not just like the traditional programming and traditional software engineering, but also covers the new trends that are coming in data science or machine learning or artificial intelligence. All of the libraries have good support in Python.
Yeah, let's say we have had we've had conversations here like before with software engineers, and they're always telling us like there's always just like a new coding language coming up, but like they always say like stick true to like the Java's, the C plus plus, and like the Python. So yeah, that echoes that as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I think we overplay the importance of languages as well because at the end it's just like language. It can change. But if you look at English, if let's say if you know English, then you can go anywhere in the world, many of the countries, right? So it's like that. So I know we overplay as well, but we cannot underplay as well the importance of the language. So I feel like we have to be flexible because sometimes something comes along which is like extremely better than the previous languages, and then we might have to adapt. But if not, then I think it's good to stuck with the old languages, the traditional ones.
so then you started with Amazon full time in August 2016. You worked up from being a software developer engineer one to two, then making your way to three. What are like two things that you contribute to personal development, growing, being promoted within a big tech company?
So I think first of all the tech skills, and the tech skills have at different levels the skills that are actually required to actually succeed are like varies a lot. So in the first part when I joined as an intern and then going from internship to full time as a software development engineer one, the skills were different, like just the initial coding part, programming part, and where you even if you get some hand holding from others, it's okay. Then when you actually enter the software development engineer one part, then the kind of skills that are required to succeed there are like actually writing good code, good quality code, and then as I said, testing different type of testings as well, and then how do you not regress over period of time as well? How do you not break the products that are already built in? And then when you grow into that, like going into the like how do you write a maintainable code? How do you use like solid principles? Let's say if you have to use them, how do you use design patterns? Like coding design patterns, and then that's the next level part where you move from one to two. And initial some software engineering skills on how to use the already developed tools like any of the AWS services or any iCloud services, something like that. And then when you move to a software development engineer one, which is sorry, two, with like mid-career one, it's like how do you go from just not writing code, but actually building systems or services end to end. Like, can you actually build something where you write an API end-to-end API that not just go from UI to directly to the database, but everything end to end. Like, how do you take the data, migrate to somewhere else, like use some of the like batching or streaming services that are already provided, and that's how you progress along the way from in that mid-career part. And then the senior part is much more actual end-to-end systems. Like, let's say if you have to build an entire software end-to-end, can you build that, define the components, define the services, how the services talk with each other or not, how do you do authentication, authorization, and then like how do you protect data at rest, data in motion, like everything. So all that part is much more on the senior side. And then how do you go and influence other people as well? It's where the three comes in mostly. That how can you influence like the entire team's architecture? Can you teams the entire team? Sometimes technical culture as well, right? So all of this operational excellence comes in. Like, can you improve the monitoring or metrics of that services, and then keep on improving that over a period of time? Can you improve the excellence, the engineering excellence practices that the team uses? Sometimes design reviews, certain questions that the team is not asking over a period of time over and over again, or how do you reduce the same mistakes that the team is making? So all those parts comes into senior. I didn't progress to senior at Amazon. I moved like literally directly externally to Apple. But yeah, I think the roles in general, the levels or the number of levels, or the width of the level is varies across the industry from company to company, but overall the guidelines or the kind of nature of the jobs remains the same. So if someone is actually getting started, I will suggest that have a GitHub profile, like put some projects there, like start dabbling with the software versioning skills, and then put all the projects there. Document some like good amount of stuff there, so you can put it on your resume as well, and that helps with, because it's the best marketing thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
And once you are there, like if you already done lot of the development, you are already good, because the it's nothing like the software engineering that most of the companies do is very similar. It's just that it's just streamlined. Apart from the streamlined part is almost the same. Like there are features that we have to build for user, and then that's it. Like you just build it, you ship it, and rest of the things remains the same. So I will say that just to succeed, like preparation first is definitely one point. The second part I will suggest is that in initial career, now if I look back, I feel like the listening capacity that I had was much less at that time, because
Mhm.
just getting out of the university, so listening to other people, because they have been there for a long time, have seen almost same trajectories as yours. So the suggestions that they give, or get some mentorship as well. So all the perspective that you get apart from your own is very useful, at least in the initial career. And the
Yeah.
third part I'll say is that focus on the end results. Like for example, I remember initially in my career, let's say some of my efforts were spent on just refactoring or optimizing or how I liked it. Like, okay, I need this perfect, I need it like this, and that's why I'm going to spend some time on this. But at the end of the day, what matters is whether it is creating a value for the customer or not. And when I say that, it directly impacts the value it generates for the company as well, right? Because the profits or the margins, everything is proportional to how impactful that product is, and whether it saves some cost to someone or not. So that part, I feel like, focusing on the delivery part, go
Yeah.
and just focus on, okay, what's the impact of this, and then go start with the highest impact things. Sometimes, some of them are very small line change as well, like very low hanging fruit, that, okay, I change this line to this, and now we have some, let's say, 50% reduction in CPU cycles, something like that. So all of these things, I know it definitely takes time over a period of time, but initially, if you go into that mindset of creating impact, listening to other people also, comes under umbrella of building relationships as well, like listening to people and then taking all their perspective into consideration. And the third part, of course, is preparation. So at least for the early careers one.
Yeah, I want to talk about the listening to others. So do you mean this like ask a lot of questions or like go out of your way to like listen to people, or like was it like a young in your life where you just like always like blurting it out and like now you're like way you're listening more? Can you kind of expand on that?
Yeah, sure, sure. So yeah, I think a part of it, as you said, getting like when I say listening to people, definitely be more open to their ideas as well. Because
Yeah.
sometimes initially because we are coming from the university, sometimes we forget that like I think the people who are there probably knows more stuff, even though they don't put out that like easily. So
Yeah.
yeah, more than definitely I'm not saying that you should not have conversations, so have conversations, like be more curious, I think is the right umbrella. That okay,
I
when
like
you
that.
say listen, like be more curious, okay, what's the perspective, like why things have been like this for a long time, and there should be a reason behind it as well, right? Sometimes we like overlook those all those things, that okay, no, I don't think this should be like this, it should be, this is the ideal way to do it. But in most of the practical world, many of the things are have some reasoning behind it, why something was shaped in a way it has been. So be more curious, ask questions why. So I think one of the framework that have been following was like five whys. That if you start asking why something happened, and then there will be some reason behind it, then you again ask like why this happened. So you get like five layers of reasoning, and then this also applies to any of the debugging or any of the incident analysis that you have to do as well. If you ask five whys, then five reasons, and that the deepest reason as well, and then you start solving that reason. So
Yeah.
it just solves everything out. Not just those fives, but something else as well. So this curiosity part also comes in listening to others as well as asking more questions.
Yeah, and feel like curiosity is like just something you want to have at a young age, just to be curious and like other people and like why that's happening, as you said, but like also curiosity. I know we talked about like books and podcasts and stuff, but always just like learning. I feel like it's just a huge thing at our age or like my age, to always just be curious. How can I do this better? Or like, what are some ways I can improve this? True to like what you spoke about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I said, right, the number of opportunities that are there, if you just do one Google search, then there are like, like n number of tech conferences that you can actually go to. And,
Yep.
many of them have free passes or free entries to students as well. And a lot of many mentorship programs as well. And then, what we didn't have initially was that access to industry people, because, LinkedIn was just getting started at that time. Now you have like all entire pool of industry people, and I know I some many of the students actually reach out directly to me on LinkedIn as well, asking for some suggestions here and there, like very similar questions on how to get started. So all of those part were not there before. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's like everyone definitely should do that. And it's so there are some solutions, there are solutions which already exist, and people just need to like find those part out.
Yeah, and I feel like that's so true. Like there are so many opportunities there to like reach out and like be creative, to, like actually break in. It is a tough job market right now. And like we hear you on that for sure. But there are ways to reach out to people through like LinkedIn and just try and set up something with them of like their best advice.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. I think, and I most of the industry people are definitely much busier,
Yeah.
because I, for example, I cannot answer to maybe 5 or 10 students like within 1 or 2 days. So like, but definitely people will get back. So I know, like maybe I'll take 1 or 2 weeks, and I know when I was reaching out as well. I had very, very like lot of helpful alumni group that graduated from the same university and were at many of the big tech companies, like all of that and all of them, they used to actually get back and then give very clear cut advices on, okay, this is what you need to do, or this is what you can do to improve yourself, not just get a job. Because definitely getting a job gives you that initial boost of confidence that okay, everything is going to eventually be great. But I feel like it's just a byproduct of your skills. If you
Yeah.
have skills, then even if you don't get job, you can you can do something else. Like even if you start a small project of yours, it can get bought out. And a lot of the stories that you might have heard from like the initial tycoons, big tech tycoons that have started with a small project and then selling those games or some minor pieces of software here and there to others. So I feel like that's definitely an option, and US being a free market definitely helps with that.
Yeah, and like honestly, like side projects are the way to go. Like just like literally this week, like a side project that I worked on, I've been working on for 12 plus months is like now my full time job, like literally as of yesterday. And so there's just so many opportunities out there to work on a small project and either have that prove to an Amazon or Apple that like you could do this work or have it actually become your full time job. So yeah, being opportunistic is like one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
But I also want to speak about a strategy that you use. So you found alumni that work at companies like Amazon and Apple and reached out to them. What was something you said or like what was the strategy?
Yeah, sure. So some of the questions that I initially asked was, okay, how do I develop this skill? Because
Yeah,
most of the time we already know what skills we need because it is already listed on many of the job postings.
yeah,
But how do we develop that? Like, and the one important part to find out is that, what are the best ones to do it? Because there are so much of content in general and so many number of resources, courses that you can take. Like you and we don't have infinite time. Like let's say if we had infinite time, then the problem was different. Now we just have, let's say, sometimes 1 year, and not even 1 year, sometimes even just a summer before the, like we have to get a job or get an internship. So how do you actually optimize that time and get to those resources was one of the questions that I've asked to multiple people. And I think like couple of things that I got at that was mostly around, like the solutions that I got was reading algorithms books. I know couple of them. I think the algorithm design manual was one of them, and lot of people suggested that, and it's actually extremely good. It's not like, it's not just theory. It's actually practical stuff and practical algorithms that are being used day to day life. So that's one. And then there are a couple of them. I think most of the are already out. I probably my info is outdated as well because it has been 5 6 years. I
yeah,
haven't
yeah,
seen anything. But yeah, so that was one part. Ask like how to optimize on getting that. And the second one was also the first question that you asked, that okay, how do I actually break into tech? Like
yeah.
succeeding after is definitely the things that I'll ask once I join. But how do you get there? Like how do you polish my resume, for example? Like that increases my chances of getting an interview. So all those kind of stuff. So one of the other help that I got from those alumni was also to review my resumes. So that
Mhm.
because they were already there, and many of these alumni are also ones who actually do interviews as well, take interviews basically. So for example, after I joined Amazon, I started interviewing after 6 7 months, I think. So I already knew, okay, this is what are the skills that they're looking at. So
Yeah.
that suggestions to get from the industry folks is definitely helps, not just polishing resume, but everything end to end.
I do want to talk about we are winding down on here and you ask people how would you break into tech. And so I want to really end with like this question on you've given us a ton of advice, but like what's just like another strategy that you would advise people to use to break into tech?
I would say apart from the hands-on projects and like preparation, I don't say anything any other easier way to do it. So one thing that is picking up trends now is also like developing projects and then putting on Hacker Rank or Hacker News as well, not Hacker Rank, Hacker News as well. So that any Y Combinator news, if you put it there, like people gets like notices those projects and like definitely in general it helps a lot. So getting I feel like the lot of the software engineering projects don't get that much of marketing in comparison to rest of the things.
Yeah.
So that is one way to do it, and resumes are definitely the other one. Getting a personal website I feel like is one another way to do it, because I have not seen many of the like resumes that have websites. If you have it, at least you may not, let's say, get an interview on basis of that, but when you actually hit the interview, then the interviewers are actually interested in knowing what you are doing, like in terms of projects or any of the other stuff that you do, because it's like a holistic, like everyone wants to work with someone who is actually interested in improving themselves. So that
Yeah.
helps.
I really love that advice because I feel like it really makes you stick out. Because like once you're applying to some jobs, like they'll help you fill in like, oh, personal website. And I feel like if you have a personal website, it catches the eye of a recruiter way more. Just be like, hey, like someone actually developed a website for themselves on like the projects they covered. And I think gives
Yeah.
you a really good opportunity to show off like what you can do from a coding perspective. And so last question for you, a little fun question here. You rated your skills a 7 out of 10 for software, what you would rate your coding skills earlier. Are you a 10 out of 10 now, would you say?
No, absolutely not. I feel like the right people to actually answer that are the ones who actually review my code, and and they'll probably say 8 out of 10, maybe little bit of improvement, because a lot of the skills on even testing skills like unit testing, functional testing, integration testing, all of those things developed over a period of time, and that's why I'll give probably one more point to myself. But other than that, I'll still keep the two for the bugs that I generate here and there sometimes.
I love that. Well, this is a 10 out of 10 interview. Thank you so, so much for joining us. Where can people connect with you and learn more about you?
I think I have a personal website, and people can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And I usually tend to try to actually like reply back as soon as I can. So they can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, thank you so, so much for your time today.
Thanks.